What's up, guys? Good to see everybody again. It's been a little bit since I made a video, but yeah, I was driving home from work the other day, and I noticed that actually one of my first videos, the one about hockey being way too expensive, kind of popped off. So that was cool, and so I decided that I would make a follow up. Nothing too crazy, just I'm kind of passionate about hockey, and I enjoy talking about it. So I was looking for things to yap about. And I was having a conversation with my buddy the other day at the rink after one of our games, and we were just talking about how, you know, oftentimes I think parents get a little caught up in, parent brain where they kind of like have trouble seeing objectively in terms of like their kids' progress and how they're doing in the sport and where they're really going. You know what I mean? And one of you guys actually commented and said something about how AAA was kind of a pipe dream money pit, which I thought was pretty accurate. And it just sort of sparked this debate between my buddies and I in the locker room, talking about how, like, what a realistic path to the NHL looks like, and how a lot of parents, either the parent wants the kid to keep playing, or the kid wants to keep playing, but the parent doesn't want them to. It's very rarely is it the kid is talented and going somewhere, and the parent is also involved. You know what I mean? It's either one or the other, and that kind of sucks. But I just wanted to make a little video and yap a little bit for about kind of how a realistic path to the NHL would look like, I think. And we're going to analyze a couple of different players here and kind of talk about what the stats show, what the stats don't show, what the scouts are kind of seeing, at least from my perspective, and then how you can, compare that and contrast it to what your kid is doing or what your buddies are doing, or what you're doing, or whoever this video is for. But yeah, let's just dive right in. So I got a couple different players pulled up. This first one's Nate Walker. You may or may not know him. He's a blues player, fourth line grinder kind of guy. Definitely not a household name, but me being a blues fan, this is the first guy that I thought of. And the reason for that is I think Nate Walker is kind of the perfect embodiment of, a realistic path to the NHL. Like if you pick any random kid off the street and you're like, okay, he's going to the NHL, this is probably what the odds are in favor of in terms of this kind of career, this kind of player is realistically what you're going to be looking at in terms of, I want to go to the NHL. Okay, well, this is probably where you're going to end up. Not that that's, saying anything about Nate Walker, what kind of player he is, or anything like that, but his career is sort of, when I look at it, it's the most realistic. So we'll talk about his physical specs first. He's a 94. He's 32 years old. Shoots left here. 5'9", 187. So nothing too crazy. He's not a physical specimen or anything like that. I feel like 5'9", 187 is like pretty standard for almost everybody. The standout guys are obviously like 6'2", 6'3", 205. That'd be like a pretty sweet hockey build, but this is pretty average, man. I mean, 90 fucking percent of people that are walking around on the street that play hockey are 5'9", 187. So that's pretty solid. Drafted, looks like 89th in 2014, round 3. Cool. So let's look at his career. What do we see here? Immediately, one of the first things that I see is he's jumping a lot. And this is pretty common nowadays. You got to do what you got to do as a player to get time. Some of this is probably playing time. Some of this is probably outside his control. I mean, once you really shift from amateur to professional hockey, it's less about where you want to play and more about where they will play you, if that makes any sense. And I'm seeing a lot of that here. Obviously, he's an Australian. Well, he's from the UK, but he's Australian, that kind of thing. So we see a couple of foreign clubs here. But what do we see? So we got a group of U18 teams here, group of U20, group of U20. He's on loan to HC Alamook, whatever that is. A bunch of foreign teams sick. And then eventually he goes USHL to Youngstown Phantoms. But let's take a look at his minors career here, his youth career. So we got 33 games played in U18 in 2009, 15 points. Cool, about a half a point per game. 28 games played, 42 points. 23 games played, 10 points. Sydney Ice Dogs played 4 games, 1 point. Yikes. So nothing too spectacular here. As a scout, if I'm looking at this and I'm really analyzing and I'm saying, okay, is this a player that I'd recommend drafting in my franchise or is it not? Immediately off the bat, I'm saying he's kind of underperforming relative to where we would want him to be. So what else does he present? And you're not going to see this here in the stats, and this is important. You're not going to see this here in the stats, but nowhere on here does it say, bruiser or, puck handling workhorse kind of a thing. Physicality, nothing on here about his physicality, nothing about his puck battles, nothing about, how he's kind of a role player. Like, you're not going to see any of that. This is just numbers. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, from a numbers perspective, he's not that special. If I looked at this guy strictly numbers and, NHL teams aside, just this right here, I'd say, maybe not what I'm looking for. And I'd probably move on. There's nothing crazy here. I don't think he had a single season that was more than a point per game, except down here he's got 2012, 2013. He scored 24 points in 13 games played for U20. Good for him. Other than that, that's his only positive season. Oh, sorry, U20. He's also got 14 games played and 20 points. So that's cool. A couple of playoff appearances, 6. So he's experienced. Here's another positive season here: 37 games played, 42 points, 28 games, 42 points. Yeah, he's hovering right around 1 point per game, maybe a little less, and it all depends on who he's playing and where he's playing at. And then he's got a season on the World Championships for Australia, which is cool. And then he jumps around the minors. This is pretty realistic, I'd say, in terms of, again, if you're going to pick anybody up off the street and you're like, okay, this guy's going to the NHL, this is probably what it's going to look like. Not a superstar, not a franchise player. This isn't somebody you build your team around. This is somebody who you use to build your team. Meaning, okay, I just picked up Gavin McKenna. Who do I want around him? This is one of those guys. We call them role players. He does what you need to do. He's not amazing at anything, but what he can do is exactly whatever you need him to do. You need him to go out there and score goals. He might be able to do that. You need him to go out there and get physical. He can do that. Win puck battles. He can do that. Beat the other team up. He can do that. He's just a role player, which is exactly what some teams need. Some teams need defensive defensemen. You're not going to see that in the stats either unless you're really looking analytically at, turnovers caused, turnovers, capitalized on, turnovers given away, controlled zone entries, prevented zone entries. Like, unless you're looking at these highly advanced stats, which, the scouts are, but you're not going to have these stats for your, 14-year-old AAA kid. You're not going to have that. You're going to have these stats that I'm staring at right now. Games played, assists, goals, total points, penalty minutes, plus minus. That's like the big stats, the big 6. So looking at all this, I'd say this is pretty realistic. There's nothing super complex here. Now let's take a look at, for example, Jack Hughes. So here we have Jack Hughes, obviously in 01. He's not 30. He's 24. Shoots left, 5'11", 176. Again, nothing outstanding. As soon as I'm looking at the picture, I'm like, okay, he's not super tall. He's not super heavy. He's about average. This is what you want out of a forward. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, you'd like him to be 6'2", 205 and super fast still, but, this is realistic. Little blurb here says elite skating, hockey sense, and skill. Cool. None of that's in the stats, so let's look at the numbers. Here's the numbers. Marlboro's AAA, Rebels AAA, Marlboro's AAA, AAA, Georgetown Raiders. Look at the leagues here. AAA, OJHL, USHL, National Development, World Hockey Championship, World Hockey Junior Championship, USHL. These are premier elite leagues. Cool, he's playing. What about it? Like, how is he playing? So let's go back again. 2016-17, we got the Marlboro's AAA, 33 games played, 73 points. I'll pause for a second there. 80 games played, 159 points. Another dramatic pause. I think you're seeing what I'm getting at. You're picking up what I'm putting down. These are elite numbers. I promise you, if your kid is the next Jack Hughes, you would know. You know what I mean? Look at these stats. I'm just going to let the stats sit up here while I yap a little more. Look at these stats. There's not a single season here that I look at and I'm like, dang, maybe pass. Literally every one of these stats in a vacuum, isolated, I'd probably look at that and be like, yeah, I'd take a chance on him. 24 games played, 48 points, 2 points per game on the national juniors team. Pretty gnarly. Plus 17 is crazy. 24 games played, 48 points. Now, you look at his rookie season with the Devils, 2019-2020, he's got 61 games played, 21 points. That's not too bad. He's a rookie. I think they set high expectations for rookies. Would it be super cool if he came in year 1 and blew it out of the water? Yeah. Is it an absolute change of environment and pace? Yeah. Way, way different. I mean, you're coming from U.S. National U18, so you're playing a bunch of 18-year-olds too. Now you're playing anybody from 18 to 40, any skill level. They're all fast. They can all shoot. They can all handle. Like, the difference between the best and worst players in the NHL is vastly different to the difference between the best and worst players in the National Team Development Program. Here's the big thing I see. Ready? And this is what parents aren't seeing. Consistency. Look at the difference in numbers between these teams, or rather the lack thereof, right? And obviously the numbers are literally different, but here's what I'm talking about. 33 games played, 73 points per game. Cool. That's about 2 points per game. 80 games played, 159 points, 2 points per game. 27 games played, 54 points, a point and a half per game. 24, 48, 2 points per game. 36, 68, 2 points per game. 24, 48, 2 points per game. He is consistently scoring 2 points per game at all levels, in all leagues, at all pages of play. That's what we're looking for in youth talent. It's not about can your kid drop 50 goals a game in a house league. Nobody cares. Can he do it every game all season? Can he do it multiple seasons? Can he elevate to a new league and do it there? Can he keep up and do the same thing at a faster pace of play against better opponents? At home, away, back-to-back seasons. Like, this consistency is huge. That's the biggest stat that I look for personally. I don't care if you scored 159 points in 80 games. I care if you can do it twice. Can you do it 3 times? Can you do it 4 times? I want to see you do it back to back. This is the difference between NHL level talent and most people's kid, realistically. But parents can't see that, which is understandable. I mean, that's your kid. You want them to succeed, right? When I look at, my kid, hypothetically, I don't have one, but when I look at my kid and I see him score, that's what I see. I say, oh, my kid just scored. He's awesome. What I don't see, is the fact that they're losing the game. And that's obviously microcosmic to the situation. But this is what I'm talking about. And what I'm hoping to, spread here is that when you get down to the actual realistic probabilities of, how far can my kid take this, or how far can this family go in hockey, these are the things you need to be thinking about. Okay, not just how good is my kid, but how good has my kid been? How is he progressing? And can he continue to do what he's doing? Once again, if your kid was Jack Hughes, you would know. Not everybody can be Jack Hughes. We need the Nate Walkers of the world. For every one Jack Hughes, there's probably 50 Nate Walkers. Not everybody can be elite. If everybody was elite, then nobody would be, right? So, unrealistic here. Let's take another look. All right, here we go. Jimmy Snuggerud. He plays for the Blues also. Forgive me, I'm a Blues fan. You guys may or may not know any of these names, but that's fine. Jimmy Snuggerud is, I'd say, a happy middle. Highly touted prospect, obviously. If you look at his stats, I'd say he's right in the middle. He ain't a Jack Hughes. He's not putting up 160 points in 80 games, but he ain't a Nate Walker either. He's going to score. You ask him to go out there and score on the 5-on-4, and you get him the puck, he'll probably put it away. You know what I mean? Maybe not every time, but he will. And let's look at his stats here. He's 21, born in 04, from Minnesota, sick. 6'1", 194. That's a pretty good build. That's right about what I would ask for as a forward. Any taller than that, and you're risking slowing him down. Any heavier than that, and you're risking slowing him down. He needs to be bulky enough that he can't get knocked off, but not too heavy that he's slow, right? So this is good. Already, if I'm a scout, I'm seeing this, I'm like, okay, this is good. Now we take a look at his stats here. Where did he play? Great Plains AAA, AA, AAA, high school, and then immediately juniors, national team development program, or U.S. National U17. USA U18 World Junior Championships, Minnesota, and then the Blues. This is pretty, I'd say, standard for, your above average hockey player. Guys that were like playing AAA at 14, everybody knew their names. Coaches were like, yeah, you're going somewhere. This is probably what that looks like, realistically. Now, again, let's take one step back and remind everybody that these guys are also far and few between. If for every one Jack Hughes, there's 50 Nate Walkers. For every Nate Walker, there's 50 of your kid. You know what I mean? Probably 5 billion of your kid, realistically. Even to be Nate Walker is hard. This is the step up, right? So you got AAA, so he's good. But what did he do? 15 games played, 12 points. Not bad, just under a point per game. He's got his high school game here, 23 games played, 34 points. That's expected. The competition, at least in my opinion, at high school is a little less than club travel hockey, but that's a debate for another time. National Team Development Program, really good to see him there. He's in the USHL. 29 games played, 14 points. As a forward, I'd probably expect a little more. Says here he plays right wing. I don't know about that. Again, from a numbers perspective, that's a little disappointing, especially with -3. That's not super great. But, let's push forward. Another one. You got 45 games played, 32 points, and he's dead even on the points here on the plus minus. Next season, 26 and 26, dead even, 1 point per game, solid. National team again, 59 games played, 63 points. Here we go. We're positive and plus 27. That's pretty gnarly. That's really good. Good to see that. Juniors, NCAA D1, awesome. 40 games played, 50 points. Boom, breakout season right there. You're at D1, you just stepped up, and you're already over a point per game with a 35 plus minus. That's solid. 42 penalty minutes is a lot. I could make a whole video on today's hockey and discipline. I think it's a little ridiculous, but we'll save that for another time. A couple more seasons in Minnesota, cool. Just under a point per game, just over a point per game. And then he's got his rookie season with the Blues here. 7 games played, 4 points. Next season, 48 games played. That's the current season. 25 points. He's projected, just under a point per game, -6. Not bad, right? So it's not outstanding stats. Once again, this is not a guy from the numbers where I would look at this and say, yeah, I'm building my entire team around him. I'm signing him to a 9-year deal right now, and I'm restructuring the entire team around this kid. Probably not. Would that be awesome for me as a Blues fan? Absolutely. Is that happening? No. Should it happen? Also no. Numbers wise, right? What do you not see here? Pop quiz for everyone in the audience. What's one kind of stat that's not on this list? Defense. I don't see anything about turnovers, giveaways, time in possession. You don't see anything about high danger chances, shots on net average, shooting percentage, none of that. You don't see any of this here. So I think, at least in my opinion, he's a far more complete player than this, but that's what the stats say. Right. So I'd say this is dead even. He's productive, 100%. Look at this. Even if he's not at a point per game, positive, 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 positive. He's got like 8 seasons back to back with a positive plus minus. That's really good. That's what we want, right? Let's take a look at his assists. He's consistently getting more assists than goals. Okay, so he's probably some kind of playmaker. He likes to move it around, get guys open, that kind of thing. He's definitely scoring. He's scoring goals here too. 24 goals this season, 20, 20, 20. Solid 20 goal scorer, except for, these junior championships. But playoff appearances don't really count. I just want to know that he's been there, so he's got the experience. That's cool. Interesting. So, what can we gather from all of this from these 3 guys? Realistically, and again, this kind of calls back to the first video I made, do you have to play AAA to make the NHL? No, obviously not. There's tons of guys that started at, 15, 16, 17 years old, never played AAA, just played for their high school, and they were pretty good. Went on to juniors, and they got better. You know what I mean? Should you play AAA? Maybe. I'd argue it's a personal decision. I really like AAA. I think the competition's great. I think in terms of getting better, there's not a lot of ways to get better as efficiently as AAA can do. If you are coachable and if you work hard, the resources that AAA has access to, be that, physical, like weight room, shooting pads, time on the ice, as well as, coaching, that kind of thing. I think the resources that AAA gives you access to are kind of second to none. If you can play AAA, I would. It's awesome. I'd say it's super fun. Don't listen to me because I've never played AAA, but I would argue that it's super fun. The resources are great, and it's something that you're going to remember forever. You know what I mean? Plus, you get the clout. But is it necessary? I wouldn't say so. Is it worth it? That's a tough one to answer. Once again, another video for another time, but I just think it's interesting to kind of look back at some of these players and see, where they played and what their path to the NHL looks like. And I think you can really look at this and say, okay, well, where were these guys when they were my kid's age? And I think it's important that, parents take a step back and they say, okay, where's my kid now versus where are most people by this point? And then you can really ask yourself the important questions like, should I push my kid into his second year of U18 AAA? Well, what are his stats looking like? Oh, a quarter point per game? Probably not. Or, 2 points per game? Okay, well, why isn't he already getting calls from junior teams? What's going on with his game that scouts are kind of sniffing at and they don't really like? Things like that. Is he consistent? Maybe he's not super consistent. Maybe he's got 2 points, 4 points per game even this season. Well, he had 0 points per game last season because he didn't play. Well, maybe he just needs more exposure. It's things like that. We have to, as parents and fans of the sport, we have to take a step back and get out of that parent brain and really look at these kids and say, okay, where are they actually at? Try to remove the hype from the AAA label, I suppose, or your AA label or whatever it is, and say, okay, what is my kid actually good at, and what is he not? What is his future realistically? What doors are open right now? You know what I mean? Does he have offers from junior? Can he go play WHL? Can he play QMJHL? Can he play OHL? Can he go USHL? Can he go to ECHL? There's 5,000 leagues he could go to. I mean, look at Nate Walker. Dude played in every league in existence, right? Finally ended up in the show. Took him a while, but he got there. You can do it, but I'm just tired of seeing kids wasting their lives away. As much as it probably hurts to hear for a lot of people, honestly, it's just sad to see these 23, 24-year-olds that are still chasing a dream. As much as don't stop chasing a dream just because I said it. You know what I mean? But chasing the dream in the sense that, like, I mean, come on, man, you played what, single A, house league, maybe double A, and you're killing it at the local rink drop-ins as your 24-year-old. Like, what are we doing? There's no scouts at the beer league, I promise you. They're not checking the live barn when you play. You can't. I mean, even if you wanted to play juniors, what are you going to do? Send them your rec league highlights? They're not going to care, man. Life ain't going to wait on you. So, yeah, that could be my bias because I don't play in the league, obviously. But just something to think about. I thought this would be a good video because I've been thinking about this lately in terms of like how many parents have these absolute pipe dream, no shot chances, visions of their kids going to the league when they're struggling in a house league or whatever. So it's pretty good to sometimes break these guys down and look at where they were and say, okay, maybe it's unrealistic or maybe it is realistic, and it can kind of give you an idea of where you are and where you could be going and how you can best pivot to keep chasing this dream, or maybe it's time to focus on playing for fun. You know what I mean? So not as much as a happy video as normal, but definitely a realistic one for sure. Good to catch up with you guys, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.